Get ready to get up close and personal with Love and Life, the show that helps you experience real love and discover the key to happiness in your life.
Welcome to Love and Life. We're glad you've chosen to join us today. I'm your host, Garvin DeShazer. Over the past few weeks, you've probably noticed that I've been starting each show by talking about the upcoming 2-day Real Love Workshop that will take place here in Phoenix on Saturday, January 25th, and Sunday, January 26th. We're very excited about this workshop, and today we are especially thrilled to get a preview right here on the Love and Life Show. The man who will be leading this intensive workshop, Dr. Greg Baer, author of more than 17 books on real love and founder of the worldwide Real Love movement, has agreed to be our guest today to talk about what we're likely to experience at the seminar. Welcome back to Love and Life, Greg.
It's always good to be with you, Garvin.
Thanks, buddy. This is an exciting event that's coming up, and I wanted to really dedicate today's show to letting people know what they can expect in this. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the insights that you've shared with us in previous workshops. This is actually an annual event, isn't it?
Yes, we've been doing this annually in Phoenix for several years now.
I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a substantial community of people that are practicing real love in their daily lives here in the Phoenix area. But it's not going to be just people from the Phoenix area. There are going to be people coming in from all over the country, and I think there's some coming from foreign countries too, aren't there?
There are quite a few people coming from Europe, Africa, all over the world.
This is going to be an amazing event, and I hope all of our listeners who have the opportunity or can make the opportunity to be here will come to that event on January 25th and January 26th. One of the things that kind of in the promotional materials that Donna sent me on this that I'm excited about is the language around this. I love this. It's how to live the exuberant and authentically loving life you've always wanted, how to completely eliminate anger and fear from your life. Those are pretty bold claims, Greg.
If I were to read these myself with no experience with real love, I would consider them to be maybe a bit hyperbolic, claiming a bit much. But I do this work all day, every day. And so what I'm talking about that we're going to be doing at the seminar is what I do in person with people and what I do on the phone with people every single day. So when I talk about this being a transformative experience, those who know me well realize that I don't exaggerate when I use words that describe things. This is a huge thing. Take a look around us. I mean, the world is really, forgive me, screwed up. Everywhere you go, we have unhappy children. We have parents who are out of control. I watched a sports show just last night where they were talking about the increased incidence of violence between children. These are little elementary school kids, who are like playing pee-wee football and soccer, and violence between kids, violence of the parents on the referees. I mean, to the point where referees are being killed. Our society is going nuts. And yes, this is getting worse, and this is happening increasingly all over the world. Well, it's an indication of an overall lack of our caring about each other, our knowing how to be unconditionally loving. On the sports show last night, for example, they called it what they think is a lack of civility. Well, you can call it that if you want to, but what if I tell you, well, Garvin, it's a lack of civility. What are you going to do, buy 3 pounds of civility?
Yeah.
So what if we've labeled it? It really matters what we call it. It's a lack of unconditional love. And what we're going to be doing in January on the 25th and 6th is we're going to be showing you what real love looks like. Very different from everything else. So, yes, I've written 20 books and DVDs and CDs, and I've recorded hundreds of hours of answering people's questions and done a PBS special, and all that stuff's great. But no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how many books you read, books can't love you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the absence of unconditional love in our lives, and what we're going to be doing differently at the seminar is not just talking to you about it. You can buy books in the back if you want. I'm going to be showing you by actually loving you. You're going to feel it.
That's one of the most
will change
exciting.
your life.
That's one of the most exciting things about this, Greg. When I came to my first one several years ago, I was expecting, I'm not sure what I was expecting, some sort of a speaker speaking from the front and a program and standard seminar stuff. And what I experienced was just this outflow of love, this connection between everybody that was there, and you were working with one person at a time in a way that allowed them to be seen, allowed them to get real with what was going on in their lives. And it, sometimes emotional, it was sometimes, as you said, transformative, enlightening, but it was also an experience that just caused, I think, everyone in the room to feel wrapped up in something warm and touching and connected. And every time that I've been to one since then, and I've been to many of these now, it's more and more that way. So I'm really excited about coming to this one and seeing what shows up this time. If you have a question for Greg, please be sure to write it down and bring it with you to this 2-day Real Love workshop on Saturday, January 25th and Sunday, January 26th at the Phoenix Airport Marriott. Greg, I think most people are really surprised the first time they come to one of these events to find out how accessible you are and how informal and maybe even laid back the experience of this workshop is.
I had a man come from England several years ago to one of these events, and he had, in his own words, been to every motivational speaking thing there was. And so he'd gotten used to kind of the format of these things,
Mm-hmm.
the pounding music, the sort of rock star up on the stage, preaching to people and waving his arms and jumping about. And as I say that, I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying that's kind of how motivational speaking goes. They're there as entertainers at least as much as educators. And he sat there for the first hour or two going, well, when does the entertainment start? Talking about our lives and how crazy and stupid we can be when we don't feel unconditionally loved and when we don't behave in unconditionally loving ways toward other people, frankly, is pretty entertaining. You've been to enough of these that there's no shortage of laughter during a Real Love event. But it's really very calm. I don't do cute exercises. I don't do tricks. We don't stand and wave our arms. We don't sing songs together. I don't do a single thing to artificially hype up people's emotions because I figure that if you can't duplicate it at home, then why do it at the event?
Yeah.
So everything we do there is going to be something that I will show you how to do at home so that it can continue to transform your life. You've got to be able to carry not so much skills because it's not about techniques, but you've got to be able to carry the feeling that you get while you're there home, or why bother to come in the first place?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that a traditional, like the kind of thing you're talking about, the rah-rah, sis boom bah kind of thing, motivational stuff, it's kind of like, okay, well, 3 days later, it's all gone. But with Real Love, that connection remains.
Yes.
We've been talking about the Real Love workshop that's coming up on Saturday, January 25th and Sunday, January 26th at the Phoenix Airport Marriott. Greg, one of the things that I enjoy most each year is learning what new insights you've discovered since the previous workshop. I know as you're practicing this stuff, as you're working with people day in and day out, new things come to your understanding, and you always share those with us at this workshop. So I remember particularly in last year's workshop, and I guess it was in January of last year here in Phoenix, that you started with a description of the 5 truths. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. One of the biggest reasons that we do these is that I'm learning this as I go along, just like everybody else is. And there are constantly new realizations, new understandings that are coming to my mind, and we do these so that I can share with people what we're learning. The more effective, the more powerful, the deeper, the simpler that we can make understanding love be, the easier it is to implement for people in their lives. The more complicated you make a thing, the harder it is to do. And so
that makes sense.
These days, I was raised in science, and so I was raised in, chemistry and math and those things, and you could come up with an equation that would work, or you could come up with, a computer program that would work. But then somebody would come along with an equation or with a program, and everybody in the room would just go, and their intake of breath was an expression of what is actually called in science, scientific or mathematical elegance.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you can do a computer program with 1 million lines and you can make the program work. But if you can do the same function in 1,000 lines and make it simpler so there are fewer ways to screw things up, then that's referred to as elegant.
Mm.
It works just as well, but now it's so much simpler. There's something to be said for simplicity. And so more and more I try to make things easier for people. So one of the things that I have come to learn myself in the last several years in working with people, that this is a work that absolutely occupies my life. People ought to come here and spend a day, and some people do.
Mm-hmm. I have.
I'm on the phone and I'm working with people from 6 in the morning till midnight virtually every day and practicing myself loving people. And in the process, I've learned that one of the things that we really do terribly, just awful, is to trust each other. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to trust. Now, we talk about trust. We know how to define trust, kind of, but we really don't trust. And we're going to get to the solution here in a little bit. But the reason we don't trust is that from birth, what we all want more than anything else, as much as we want to breathe, as much as we want to eat, is to feel unconditionally loved. And if we don't, we feel wounded. So, for example, you want to try an experiment. Now, I'm not suggesting you do it, but I can tell you the results because I have done it. Walk into a room and simply yell at somebody in the room. Simply be angry. Just pretend. Yell at another adult in the room. And while you're doing that, have somebody else do this for you so that it's not distracting to you. While you're being angry, have somebody observe the face of a small child in the room. And I mean any age you want to. 6 months, a year. Watch their face, and then afterward talk about it. The anger that you express toward that other person sucks the love out of the room, just like that old experiment that we did when we were, usually in middle school. And they would take a candle and they would light it, and the teacher would take a glass bell jar and put it over the candle, and the fire would go out, and everybody would go, wow, that's cool. Because the fire uses up the oxygen and then puts itself out.
Yes.
Well, children need love just like they need air. And when you're angry, you suck up all the air in the room. It's gone. And you leave a child who's devastated. So having done the experiment, I can tell you that the look on a child's face when you're angry at somebody who's totally unrelated to them, simply the absence of real love in the room, makes a child panic. I mean, panic as though you just pitched them out into the middle of a swimming pool when they don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying thing. And so what I've learned to do more and more with people is to give them the experience of healing those old wounds, which they cannot do until they trust just one human being. Now, it's great if you got 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. That's wonderful. But you have to start somewhere. And that's one of the things that we'll be doing at the seminar is we'll be actually experiencing what it's like to completely trust another human being. And I don't mean in some artificial and, frankly, kind of quirky, kind of silly ways like doing trust falls. And, those are very cute to observe. But they don't transfer to real life. I mean, when in real life are you going to go up to somebody and say, hold me when I fall backward? It just really doesn't translate. But we're going to give people an opportunity to trust their souls with another human being. So you were asking, now we're back to the five
truths.
Sometimes I speak in long parentheses. But let's say that you and I are at the seminar, and I create an opportunity for you to feel completely unconditionally loved by me for the first time. We'll assume that you're a first-time attender.
Okay.
So pretend you know nothing. It's your first time there, and we won't go into how we're going to do this because, frankly, I don't know, because I don't think ahead of time how we do these things. I don't have an outline for these things or a program or an agenda or anything. We do them as we go. But I'm going to create an opportunity for you to completely trust me. And in that moment that you feel trusting and that I am loving toward you, imagine how you feel. Do you imagine that?
Yeah.
Complete trust. It's like lying, floating in a warm bath. It's supportive. It's nurturing. It's spectacular. Now, in this moment that you completely trust me and that I'm loving you, what do I want from you in return?
Nothing. I mean,
that's the whole definition.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
Of real love. That's the whole point, is that you trust me because I don't want something from you. That's why we don't trust people, is because whenever they say they love us, we know that behind that there's here's what I need you to do for me. So in this moment, I love you with no expectations.
No strings attached.
There's only one really word that applies to this. I love you as my what?
Child.
Yes, I love you as my child. Now, frankly, it doesn't matter what age you are. I do this with people who are 90 years old, which is at least 3 or 4 years older than I am now. And so I love you as my child, which makes me your what?
Father.
Yes. Now, a more endearing word than father.
Daddy.
Yes. Which brings us to the first line of the 5 truths. Now, these are not 5 tricks. They're not 5 techniques. It's not 5 steps. It's 5 truths that create a foundation for happiness. So the first truth is, my daddy loves me. When you can say that and mean it, let me tell you, that line alone transforms the world. It's like saying, I was in a ship cast adrift in the ocean. I have an anchor. It's like the ground was shifting, but now it's not.
Yeah.
So, my daddy loves me. Now let's go to the second line, second truth. Is there any doubt in your mind that I created love? Well, ridiculous. I describe it. I can pass it on to you, but I'm only sharing with you love that I already have. And just for a moment, and because we only have just a few minutes, I'll explain it in much greater detail when we're all together in Phoenix. The source of the love that I get is from what, I don't care what you call it. You can call it universal power, a higher power, God. Don't care. Not trying to teach anybody anything about religion. But I can tell you that love is a definite power, and the source of it is whatever word you choose, God. I call it God because it's short.
It's an infinite source, regardless.
Infinite source. So my daddy loves me. The next truth is, well, how can my daddy love me? Well, because God loves him. Well, if God loves him, then God loves me. This is pretty simple. So my daddy loves me, God loves me. The first two now we've got linked, and we've got a logical progression.
Greg, just before the break, we were talking about the 5 truths, and during the break, you and I were chatting a little bit about the fact that it's not just a masculine gender in this. Can you speak to that?
Not at all. Yeah, we were giving the example of you being an absolute newbie, somebody who doesn't know anything at all about real love, and you're coming to the seminar in Phoenix in January, and you feel unconditionally loved as you and I are interacting. The only reason I use you and I is because, well, let me think, because you and I are having this conversation.
Right.
And it's much easier to use, first-person pronouns than it is saying him, her, them, they. So the only reason that I used a masculine, my daddy loves me, is because, I'm a crappy mother. I'm a guy.
Yeah.
So it could just as easily be my mommy loves me. Now, why a parent, though? Because it's pretty important. Almost all of the wounds that we experienced in our lives that really matter, the wounds that are deepest. And this is also one of the things that we're going to be talking about at the seminar. The deepest wounds in our lives are the ones that we experienced earliest. Now, listen carefully. I mean, as in the most serious wounds in our lives, almost all of them happened before age 2, and we don't even remember them. So they were usually inflicted by parents, or at least people that we saw as parents. So imagine how healing it is to, in the present day, present moment, we don't do this metaphorically. We do this for real right now, you and me.
Yeah.
As I love you as a real parent, not as your blood parent. I'm not replacing anybody's parent. I don't care to. But as I love you as an unconditionally loving father, the healing is indescribable. I say that because I've seen it thousands of times. I'm not guessing at some theory that I hope will work. I do this work as I train psychologists, marriage and family therapists, psychiatrists all over the world who write and say, I've been looking all of my life for this.
Yeah.
One psychiatrist wrote me and he said, I've been doing psychiatry for 30 years, and after doing Real Love, I realized that for 30 years, I'm pretty sure I didn't do any lasting good. What a thing to say after 30 years. So, my daddy loves me. This is just between you and me, and I'm obviously a daddy figure, not much of a mommy one. So, God loves me, and these are sentences that you are saying to yourself.
Yeah.
My daddy loves me, God loves me. The next one is a no-brainer. If those two are true, if I love you, if God loves you, the next one is, so I am never alone. Baby, the number one wound that everybody feels is alone.
Yeah.
No joke.
It's that deep sense of abandonment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a deep sense of being abandoned. It's a deep sense of not feeling connected to the rest of mankind. And in fact, we feel most alone when we're in a crowded room.
Yeah, absolutely. And it plays out over and over and over again throughout their lives in every relationship. I was just holding a young woman in a meeting that I was at last night. She was crying, and I just pulled her onto my shoulder, and we were talking about the fact that she had gone through a breakup in a relationship, and what she was feeling was not just the loss of that relationship. As a matter of fact, she had decided to boot him out. But what she was feeling was this sense of deep aloneness, this sense of abandonment. And I know a little about her history. It goes back to, just like you said, probably her first or second year.
Yep. And see, what if you had come along and you had said, well, she was grieving the loss of a boyfriend, because we get distracted by details. So she's bawling and she says, my boyfriend's left me. We hear the word boyfriend and we think, oh, well, we need to talk about boyfriends. And so what if you had said to her, well, I'll be your boyfriend? Oh, you would have just made things worse.
Gosh.
In fact, you would have made things awful, catastrophic.
Yeah.
The wound isn't the loss of the boyfriend. In fact, the wound isn't the loss of the job. The wound isn't the loss of good health. The wound is none of those things. The wound is, I haven't felt loved from my birth.
Yeah.
And so what you did when you put her head on your shoulder, whether you use the words or not, frankly, doesn't matter. You loved her as a parent.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly
in her
right.
soul, whether she said the words again doesn't matter. She felt unconditionally loved by her father.
Yeah.
And all I've done with these 5 truths is make more concrete, make more simple what's actually happening. So look how short and simple these sentences are so far. My daddy loves me. That's what she felt from you. God loves me. She felt that whether she had words for it or not. I can't begin to tell you how often, as I love people unconditionally, they say to me, well, isn't this what God is supposed to be? At which point, of course, I laugh out loud. Yeah, duh. Most people have a difficult relationship with God precisely because The God they were taught was not unconditionally loving. The God they were taught was an extension of their own parents, who were not unconditionally loving.
Greg, there are wars fought over just that issue.
No kidding. I mean, what if the Muslims and the Christians, who cares what their particular belief is? What does God look like? Is there 3 in 1? Do you get baptized? Blah, 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 blah. That's religion.
Mm-hmm.
What if each individual walked around singing a song in their heart? My daddy loves me. My God loves me. So I am never alone. You think anybody would be blowing up a bomb?
No, kind of hard to recruit people for acts of terrorism or acts of retaliation in that sort of a situation.
Yes. In fact, they've done personality inventories and studies of these people who have become terrorists. These are not happy people. These are not people who feel a deep sense of connection. What they do is they go and they find boys who have no job. They find boys who are poor, so that they will never find a wife because the rich men can have 4 to 5 wives. And so there's no possibility that they'll ever have property, prestige, wife, children, nothing. They feel connected to nobody. And somebody comes along and says, if you'll go set this bomb off, you will instantly have 70 virgins. Now, of course, we get this sexual image in our head. That's not the point. You will instantly have 70 people to connect with immediately.
Yeah.
Well, these kids are going, sign me up.
Yeah.
So my daddy loves me, God loves me, I'm never alone. If those 3 are true, the 4th truth is now obvious. I have everything I'll ever need and nothing to fear. Baby, if you have nothing to fear, doesn't that solve pretty much everything?
It does. And it's getting people to the point where they can trust that. It's not always an easy task.
No.
Because
example,
they've been
I
taught.
was working with a woman recently who has been traumatized by essentially every human being she's ever known. So she was either sexually abused, emotionally used, neglected. Pick a word. She's had it all. Everyone has betrayed her trust. And I said, I love you. And then she told me all the reasons not to trust me. And I said, I know them all. I know them backward and forward. I know more of them than you do. And since you've been hurt by everybody, frankly, what have you got to lose? If I hurt you, I'm just be one more person. But what if I were to actually love you? Your whole life would change. So I repeat, I love you. Within a period of 3 days, and this is on the phone, within a period of 3 days, she was saying, my daddy loves me. God loves me. So I'm never alone. I have everything I need and nothing to fear. And number 5, I am so grateful.
Yes.
Her whole life is different. She's now moving away from the city where she used to live. She's moving away from the community where she lived because in that community she was simply trapped in old habits and behaviors. She just couldn't flourish there. Not everybody has to move, good grief. But she simply could not. And her whole life is in the process of changing because she did one thing, and you used the word. She chose, and it's a decision, to trust me.
What a powerful story. As we come into this final segment of today's show, I want to remind you that whatever you're going through, you don't have to do it alone. If what you're hearing about real love resonates for you, this may be the first time that you've heard Greg listening to this show today. If what you hear makes sense, please know that there are hundreds of people in the Phoenix area and thousands worldwide who want to connect with you and support you and love you. For more information about real love, please visit our website at www.loveinliferadio.com. That's loveinliferadio.com. Or you can go to www.meetup.com/real love to learn about events that are happening in the Phoenix area. Now that you know about real love, you don't ever have to feel empty, afraid, and alone again. Greg, I know that as you're working with thousands of people every year, you're constantly learning these new ways to help them. And you're going to be covering some of this stuff in this seminar. Can you just give us a pointer or maybe a list of some of the things that you're going to be covering in this upcoming seminar?
Sure. Just kind of off the top of my head, let me just generally list some of the topics that we'll be covering, and some of them will be in greater depth. It'll kind of depend on who's there and what the needs are. That's why I don't really plan ahead of time. I would rather teach people according to their needs than fit them into some preconceived notion on my part.
Right.
The first thing we're going to talk about is what the true nature of real love is.
Mm-hmm.
I can utter the sentence, real love is caring about the happiness of another person without wanting anything in return, and it make absolutely no difference in your life. But if I show you what it is, I mean really show you, no pretending, no metaphors, no exercises, you're going to remember that. More people are changed as a result of seeing this than as a result of anything else, and it's the only reason I do seminars. I'm old enough now that, frankly, I've been all over the world and I don't care to see another dang thing. So I don't come to Phoenix to see the desert. I don't come for the sights. I don't come because I love getting on airplanes. I come because feeling it is everything. So we're going to demonstrate it, and then we're going to talk about how the lack of it in our lives causes every single unhappy behavior and feeling that we have, all of them. Lying, attacking, being angry, protecting ourselves, defending, withdrawing, and on and on and on.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the effect of pain. All of our unproductive behaviors, when you eliminate all the clever adjectives and synonyms, it really comes down to we either feel loved and happy or we are in pain. And for most of us, and when I say most, I'm actually being very kind, for 99% of us, the pain began either at birth, or studies increasingly are demonstrating that the pain begins even in utero. These little, I'm going to call them babies, before they're born, are already experiencing the stress of the anger and the lack of love around them. Now, I chose the word stress intentionally because one of the things that I talk about a lot, we all know what PTSD is, post-traumatic stress disorder. These guys that come home from Iraq and they've seen their buddies blow up and that traumatizes them. Well, it's stressful. But what we have not appreciated is that babies, before they're even born, are already under attack. They're already being stressed. Bombs are already going off around them, so that by the time they're born and by the time they've reached age 1 or 2, we've already really completely screwed them up. But because they're so malleable, because they're so manipulatable, because they're young, we call these children cooperative, when actually they live in fear. We call them spirited, when actually they're angry and responding to the pain in their lives. Children, we don't see the pain as obviously simply because we can control them easier. We're going to talk about the 5 truths and how this solves the original pain, the original trauma in our lives, because the root wound, the root single wound in every single person I see is that they feel worthless.
Yes.
That's even a whole step deeper and worse than our feeling alone.
Yes.
The reason we feel alone is because we feel worthless. If I feel worthless, well, Garvin, why would you want to be with me? Do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that as people feel alone over and over and over, a child who so craves connection is cast aside and pushed aside and made to feel like they don't matter. The natural conclusion they come to is, I am alone because I am worthless.
Well, you just said that beautifully. I'm alone because I'm worthless, and I'm worthless because I'm alone.
Yeah.
And the two of them just set up a feedback loop to the point where eventually I've seen some adults that no matter how much love you pour on them, they've hardened to the point of granite. That worthlessness, that aloneness becomes not just a symptom of their pain. It becomes who they are. and you can't get through, which is why we all have to do whatever it takes so that we can eliminate this root wound, both for our own happiness and so we can help the generation that's up and coming. Like I said in an earlier segment, everywhere we look, the violence and the sense of detachment, picture, for example, the use of video gaming, which is epidemic amongst children. Why do you think children play video games? Well, yeah, partly they're just fun, but video games are a virtual world that enables them to escape the painful world that is all around them. That's the biggest reason children use video games. That's why men use porn. Same reason.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this loop. You just talked about it. Worthless. I feel alone. I feel worthless. I feel alone. And what that does is it's almost like a generator. Those two wounds just put out an endless supply of fear. Once you have managed to make somebody afraid enough, well, that's the essence of PTSD, or what I call PCSD, post-childhood stress disorder. You stress somebody enough and make them afraid, well, it perpetuates. It becomes like a forest fire. You don't have to light 2 matches to cause a forest fire. One will do. And so it just spreads. We're going to talk about how the loop of fear spreads, how it continues, and how we can, and I'm not making this up, how we can, right while you're there at the seminar, in a period of 2 days, sometimes less, break the cycle of the fear. No kidding.
You're not making stuff up here. I stand as witness to this. I have seen it. I have experienced it. I have seen it over and over and over again in not just a few, but in hundreds of people. The transformation that occurs when they trust that someone, their daddy, in the case of working with you in the seminar, loves them, cares about it, disproves. It absolutely puts to lie the message that they have believed in their entire life, which is, I'm worthless. When someone loves me, then I can't support that lie of my worthlessness any longer. This is a good time for us to remind our listeners to be sure and get your registration in right away for the Secrets of Real Love workshop that Greg is going to be conducting on Saturday, January 25th and Sunday, January 26th at the Phoenix Airport Marriott Hotel. Folks, if you want more love in your life, if you want more happiness in your life, if you want a sense of real peace and real worth in your heart, please don't miss this event. You'll be able to participate directly with Greg in the life-changing power of real love at the highest level. To register now, to get your hotel reservations, go to www.reallove.com. I'll be there, and I know a lot of other Real Love coaches will be as well. If you're ready to learn more about real love, please don't miss this extraordinary opportunity. Don't wait to register because space is limited and it's filling fast. Go to www.reallove.com and reserve your seat today. We've been talking today with Dr. Greg Baer, who's going to be conducting this seminar. Greg, I want to thank you for being here with us today, and I know we're all looking forward to seeing you at the workshop.
It's always a pleasure, Garvin. These workshops just light up my life. I do it all day, but getting to see an entire room full of people, almost literally, light comes from their faces, is pretty spectacular. It may sound exaggerating to some people who have not experienced this, but as you've said, you've seen it yourself. I see it every day. When people who have been without love finally have it, it's like watching sunrise.
It really is. I also want to thank our production team at KFNX, led by Robert Bombach, and I especially want to thank our sponsors and all of you, our Love and Life listeners, for making this show possible. Please be sure to tune in next Sunday at 4 o'clock Arizona time for Love and Life. And please, always remember to keep the love in your life. Bye for now.
Real love saved my marriage.
Real love has absolutely changed my life, not just at work, but also at home with my children.
Real love has affected every part of my life. It's very, very easy to understand early on so that you can make these significant changes.
Really put it on my level, so I understood it.
Do it, hurry.
It's been a tremendous aha in my life.
I'd recommend it for anybody, no matter what stage. I mean, whether you're a young person, a middle-aged, or an older person.
Do it. Stop everything you're doing right now and do it.
It will transform your life. Are you willing to be happy?
Greg's just terrific.
I love Greg.
He's an outstanding speaker. I mean, he throws humor in it, he makes it simplistic so I can understand it, and gives examples that I can relate to.
Greg's definition and Greg's practice of unconditional love really hits home.
You're very in touch with people.
Jump in head first. Do it. Hurry.
Drop everything you're doing, get to a seminar, and get involved. It's that important.
I'm a real love junkie. There you go, you can use that one.